Now, back to our roundtable, Fernand Amandi and Raquel Rodriguez. As I was saying, we're glad that we got the information from the mayor. Fernand, Joe Biden won 54% of the vote in Miami-Dade County. It was just a pathetic, terrible, kind of an epic fail. What the heck happened?
Well, Michael, to be honest, it was not a surprise to many of us who had been kind of seeing these deteriorating numbers for Joe Biden in Miami-Dade County. You may recall our firm put out a poll in the Miami Herald in early September that showed that Biden was significantly underperforming what Hillary Clinton had done 4 years ago, where she carried the county by almost 30 points. And of course, we now have the result from the election, which showed that polling was on the money. And I think it was just a case where Republicans turned out in greater numbers than anticipated. The Democrats didn't quite necessarily turn out at the level that the Republicans did, although turnout was very high. We had a record turnout in Miami-Dade County. But I think the important thing to recognize is, number one, obviously, Joe Biden is the president-elect of the United States. Winning Florida would have been important, but that was not the war. The war was winning the presidency. That happened. And I think the other thing to look at is Dade County is still a Democratic county, as you saw earlier with Mayor-elect Daniela Levine Cava. And I think having a Democratic mayor who won very much on partisan lines and what I think a lot of people acknowledge was a partisan race, and now having Joe Biden in the White House means that a lot of these efforts that were looked at and seen can be remedied in the next 4 years, and certainly by the time the 2022 elections come around.
Rocky, is there a danger in, well, first let me say that the polls in Florida showing Biden up by a couple of points were actually very accurate because there's a margin of error. So the margin of error makes it a dead heat, and so that actually was pretty accurate here. But Rocky, is there a danger in using daily polls as headlines to really gauge a race?
Yeah, I think there is, and I have to commend Fernand. I remember seeing his poll results before the election, and I was convinced about 10 days before Election Day that Trump was going to carry Florida based on what I was seeing, particularly lack of enthusiasm for Biden-Harris in areas that had gone wildly for President Obama back in 2012. But the daily polls are just a snapshot in time. And in the end, what matters is the people who actually show up to vote. And I think that they, except for a couple of polls like Trafalgar and Rasmussen and even Fernand, they underestimated the Trump voters that were going to vote for Trump but did not want to say publicly to somebody that that was their intent. And so I think there is a risk in the daily polls. And I've got to add, to respond to Fernand's point about Miami-Dade being solidly Democratic, I'm not sure that the election of Daniela Levine Cava was purely a partisan vote. And what bears it out is the Republicans flipped 2 Democratic seats in Miami-Dade, the 26 and 27 districts. We had Mayor Carlos Jimenez and Maria Vera Salazar, each won their races. And to me, that speaks perhaps even more loudly that there is solid Republican support in Miami-Dade.
Yeah, I think that's indisputable, Rocky. All right, everybody sort of keep your places. We're going to take a break and be back with more Roundtable in just a minute.
We are back with a lightning round version of the Roundtable because of weather today. Raquel Rodriguez, Fernand Amandi. Rocky, Fernand, I want you both, if you could, to weigh in on Florida went from a national punchline to a national model in elections. Rocky, you were around in 2000 when the rules were changed right after that recount. Weigh in on that, if you would.
Yes, as you recall, 20 years ago when we had the famous Florida recount, the issue was the chats. The punch card ballots, some of them did not register votes, and that was the basis for Al Gore's challenge to the recount here. Immediately after that, Governor Bush established a bipartisan commission to make recommendations on how to improve Florida's elections. And the legislature adopted those recommendations, which the governor signed into law. Among those recommendations was eliminating the punch card ballots and adopting either optical scanners or the direct recording equipment that Florida has been using since then. In addition, we made it easier to vote in advance of the election. We eliminated the requirement for an excuse to file an absentee ballot, and we had no excuse to vote by mail. We had early voting. We gave the supervisors of election the option to start counting the absentee ballots earlier, which has been obviously a point of contention in some of the other states now that are in question. And, you know, every year it's been a pattern of continuous improvement. We learn from every election and we keep making improvements. And I got to give a big shout out to the people who've been running the election. Secretary of State Laurel Lee, all the supervisors of election, especially Christina White, Pete Antonacci, Wendy Link in South Florida. This has always been an area where most of the issues have bubbled up when they have bubbled up, and they ran such an amazing election. I'm so proud of our state, and I commend everybody, starting with Governor Bush and the legislature.
Yeah, Rocky, I second that emotion. I think that Pete Antonacci, Christina White, all the supervisors really did a phenomenal job. Fernand, I just need to ask you this. You know, politics, you know better than many, almost anyone, is about symbolism as well as about anything else. You know, as corny, cliched as it might have been, I really wanted to see Joe Biden put on a Guayabera shirt, go to Cafe Versailles, have a cafecito, at least say Buenos Dias. He did nothing like that.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, you know, especially here in the Hispanic community, we know how important it is to not only engage them directly and do the rituals. It just speaks to the connection. And I think, you know, the Biden campaign was a little slow-footed in that regard. Obviously, President Trump's campaign had been engaged really in a permanent campaign mode for 5 years.
Right.
But look, Florida, as important as it is, I think these results are going to be a wake-up call, especially within the Hispanic community. Remember, Barack Obama got 48% of the Cuban vote in 2012. So the Democrats have shown when they engage in the way you described, Michael, they can get the support of the community. I really believe you're going to see those results quickly turn around, probably as soon as 2022.
You know, just for the record, there was that Despacito moment, but we won't go there at the moment. Listen, we wanted to be here with you another half hour, 40 minutes, but we got weather to attend to. So thank you, muchas gracias, for taking the time to be with us, Fernand Amandi, Raquel Rodriguez.
Thanks very much. Stay dry.